This video is part of a series where I talk about the fundamentals behind spiritual tech, and the basis for this one is bias. So at our core, as we go through life, we all accrue these individual desires that are based off of our conditioning and or the nature versus nurture problem. We pick up and leave behind different desires that we've come across from interacting with people, environments, and cultures. And as we're growing, our current set of desires, whatever we're working to achieve, becomes the basis for how we understand life, the lens through which we come to experience life. As humans, we have a strong desire to be connected, a strong desire to fit in with others. And many of the cultures that we interact with attempt to unify all the different individual desires that we all have. And sometimes we come across cultures that fit very well with what we want. Other times we try to change sort of who we are to fit into a culture. It's not bad one way or the other, whether you're fitting into the culture or whether the culture is fitting into you. But more generally, as we experience different cultures, we come to realize that cultures don't necessarily fit in with each other. How we unify this problem of division or divisiveness is important. So bringing in this concept of attention and energy, we have sort of desires that make us up, and we have the desires that make up the cultures that we interact with. Wherever we put our attention, whether that's inward or outward, that focus of our consciousness becomes the reality that we live in. So being aware of your attention, being attentive of your attention, will help you understand how you're using your energy and whether that energy is creating a world where your desires are being met, or if you have to change something in order to get you onto a path where the biases of your desires are working with you as opposed to against you. So you can either be bound by your biases to your desires, or you can use them to free yourself from restrictions in the world. And there's one point about cultural references that I think is super powerful in how you can understand biases and whether or not that bias is working with you. So if you contrast something like treading water versus the adjective of getting out of quicksand, I obviously resonate more with treading water because water resonates with me more. But depending on like the environment that you grow up in or the environment that you become accustomed to or you adapt to, the core concept behind treading water versus like getting out of quicksand is kind of the same. You're kind of fighting this resistance and trying to stay afloat, if you will, and that's more of the water basis, but forgive me. By understanding bias, you're able to get to the deeper meaning behind things as opposed to getting caught up in sort of the surface level description of like what's going on. So being able to understand like treading water and getting out of quicksand is conveying a lot of the same fundamental idea, will help overcome the effect that biases have in inhibiting understanding. So biases are kind of naturally occurring depending on environment, cultures, people, whatever we encounter, the objects that we come into contact with in the world. Being aware of them will give you power to overcome obstacles that you might encounter on your journey to achieve whatever you're trying to achieve. And specifically as it relates to technology, a lot of technology is developed by people with a lot of biases. So overcoming the biases that they've put into systems and overcoming the biases that the users of the systems have will help increase the overall effectiveness of technology. And if you notice, it takes both sides to make that work. And that's one of the things that I want to help bridge as I go on this road trip. Help people to work together to solve problems more effectively as opposed to saying it's like someone else's problem. Understand bias and you'll gain control over the reality of your life.